don't think so.
Take a seat. We would be honored if you would join us.
Another week of the Acolyte. Another week of the After Party. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We're really appreciative of everybody giving us a shot on YouTube last week, even though we had some technical difficulties. We had to get our droids on that, make some repairs, some mechanics, whatever. But we're back. I think we got it figured out. We'll see. I know we're good on audio. We got that pretty dialed in. So we're going to get the video thing going. No worries. We'll figure it out. When I say we, it's me, Tyler Bodkins. I like to blow things up because I like to blow things up. With me, you give him, and he gives you. It's Cam Reporter.
What's up?
That one was a bit of a, I was thinking the earlier today, I was like, how do I, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's the way to bring you into this.
Where'd
week.
that one come from?
That was last week. The poem. I give you, you give me me. Something about up there in the sky and down in the sea. I don't know. I had it memorized earlier.
I remember the poem from last week. I remember hearing it and being like, "That's solid," but I forgot what the words were.
Well, that's what the words are. Cameron, you excited for talking some more of the Acolyte tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited. We're about to watch together tonight.
We are. We're a little inside baseball. We have a little bit of cleanup to do from last week. I say cleanup, just something stuck out to me. And I want to talk to Cameron about it. We have some cleanup in the sense that I told you that I had something for you in Ahsoka that was I'm going all the way back to Sabine Force Watch. And we'll recap that. We'll get there. We also mentioned that we were going to talk a little bit about Star Wars comics this week before we do the Acolyte breakdown. And Cameron's also got some Star Wars Lego news. So why don't we kick it off with there, Cameron, and then we'll run through everything else before you and I go watch, and then we come back and we break down the Acolyte for everybody here. If you guys want to skip ahead, feel free, but, it's Star Wars.
Stay and hang out.
We got good stuff, because there was some stuff that we missed from last week that, honestly, I didn't really hear anybody talking about. And I heard it on my watch through today, and I was like, wait a minute, what was that?
Dang.
It was something that I feel like was intentionally done, that we would just go right by it without giving it any thought, and it'll make sense when I tell you what that thing is and why. And perhaps episode 3, we already got some answers to it, but I've got a feeling that this secret, if it is in fact pointing to something, I think it's going to take a little bit longer in the season to come to fruition. So we'll see. Yeah. But Star Wars Legos. Let's talk Star Wars Legos.
So I don't think I've shared this on the podcast yet, but there has been a rumor floating around that we're getting like an Ultimate Collector's Series Jabba sail barge this year.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be like I think it was like 4,200 pieces or something, retailing for like $4.99. So it'll be an expensive one. And I think it comes out October 1st. Going to have a whole bunch of minifigures, Bib Fortuna, Salacious B. Crumb, Jabba the Hutt, Princess Leia, which... They came out with a
Slave Leia? Or?
Well, yeah, so that's what I was going to say. Like, a couple of years ago, or probably more than a couple of years ago, there was a Slave Leia figure. And it's gone up in value, obviously, because they haven't made one in a while, because it's kind of a controversial character to release as a child's toy. So it's supposed to come with a Princess Leia, though. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll get Leia in her, like, Boosh outfit. Boosh, or Bosch.
Whichever way it is.
But there's also a set coming out that's going to be a Sarlacc pit. It's going to be $80, which is, like, so expensive for that. But because of the price, that means it's probably going to be more of, like, an adult-tailored, like, display model. Gotcha. So I think the two of those sets are going to come out and kind of, like, pair really well together for display.
So what are we in? 2024, 83 is Return of the... So it's not like really like an anniversary thing. It's just almost random.
No, they've been doing these like 18 plus sets, like the Bespin Duel or Luke training on Dagobah or the Emperor's Throne Room. Like very nice like vignette kind of like dioramas that you would display in your office with like a printed tile on it that's got like a quote from the movie or something.
Right.
So that's what it's going to be. Yeah. It's going to be tailored towards somebody who's got a very professional. It's not going to be It's not for
very professional.
playing with.
Very professional. You got your office where you do all your serious business.
Right.
Behind you is just like 30 sets of Star Wars Legos. Very, yes.
Well,
very
and people don't know this, but I work from home. I've got an office that I've gotten set up just how I like it, and I have display shelves behind me that has a couple of Lego sets, which I still haven't even had you guys over to like see the place. But
also, I still haven't gotten the Havoc Marauder.
Yeah,
you told me I could build.
Yeah,
I'm just waiting.
It's inventoried. I just went through all of my Lego sets and did inventory the other day, and like got everything organized how I wanted. But anyway, so that's
all good. It's quite a big change when you're moving houses. It's wild. I get it.
So that's one piece of news, and then the other piece, and we'll throw like a towel up on the screen so you guys can see this, but. That Dark Millennium Falcon that had been rumored. We got some leaked images of two figures from it, which are the Dark C-3PO and Darth Jar Jar.
Interesting.
And the figures look really cool. So it's like a C-3PO that's like gold like normal, but then he's got like a black arm and he's got like blacked out, or his eyes are red, kind of like 000 from the comics.
Right, yes.
Darth Jar Jar looks great too. So, two little, that was really... the sale bar has kind of been floating around for a while, but it was like a nice little surprise leak this week. I opened up my YouTube subscriptions, and somebody had posted some screenshots, and I was like, "Oh, okay, didn't expect to see those figures so soon." But yeah,
very cool. Well, you mentioned 000 from the comics, so why don't we like run through? I've got basically the last month or so of Star Wars comics up here, and so we'll just kind of go through. We're not going to do any crazy spoilers. If you haven't heard us talk comics before, we keep it pretty vague, just letting you know roughly timeline, the things that are going on. It's good to follow along. There's definitely some stuff that's being filled in between films or fleshing out certain characters. There's a lot of stuff up here that's the High Republic era, which of course is coming into play with the Acolyte. So we'll just kind of run through here issue by issue. Cameron, I know you've read probably some, if not most of these, but maybe not all of them. So
I'm a little behind.
Just, let me know when you can. You can also just do general thoughts on the series if you maybe haven't read that exact issue.
Sure, yeah.
So starting at our I guess the video's far left, we have Star Wars The High Republic. This is the main Marvel series, issue 8 of 10. This is phase 3, the final phase of the High Republic comics. And I won't go too far into spoilers. I think you're on issue 7.
Yep.
But, suffice to say that we are sort of getting to the end of our journey with Keith Trennis, who's sort of the main character in this series. And she has reunited with her former master, who we once thought was dead.
Yep.
It's Cameron's favorite Trandoshan, Skier.
Yep.
So Skier, how do you...
I think I would just say
skier. How do you do it like a Trandoshan, like with the?
skier.
Oh, that. Why did I even try?
It's like 3 S's.
It's like 3 S's.
Yeah.
So the High Republic series, I'm still partial to Phase 1. Phase 3 really feels like it's riding on the back of the fact that Phase 1 ended in such a big way. Then Phase 2 went back like 100 years or whatever, and then Phase 3 is like, we're back to the end of Phase 1. What's up? And it's like, do something. That's just the way I felt about this series. I'm not saying that it's not going to land whenever we get to the finale, but it doesn't have me as locked in as Phase 1. Just personally, I don't know. Maybe I was just more into it back then. I don't know. But to me, Phase 1 of the High Republic stuff was a lot of the better material.
I think the High Republic, and this won't be long. I'll just kind of bookmark this, but when I think about all the High Republic stuff and the spinoffs and the sidebars and stuff, I think the Blade was my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely.
It followed this like warrior Porter Davis or Davies was his name.
Portal Ingle, I thought.
Porter Ingle, yeah. I don't know.
Ingle.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Drum Throne Company, Porter.
I don't know.
Whatever. Never mind.
The Blade, though, he was called. Yeah. By the way, his Jedi counterpart that he was always with was Brash of the Brash Vow, which we have gotten in, obviously, the Acolyte last week. Anyways.
But yeah, that was such a good one. He had this like kind of Hellboy look.
Right.
Like he kind of looked like he had the sawed off horns on his forehead. He had this like gray complexion. I don't know. That's the one that stuck out to me, that little storyline. But yeah, I'm still enjoying the High Republic.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that was written by Charles Soule. And Charles Soule wrote that. He wrote the what is it? The Eye of the Tempest Eye or something. It was the Marchion Rowe miniseries.
Eye of the Storm.
Eye of the Storm. Thank you. And I mean, a lot of times the stuff that Charles Soule is writing is my favorite stuff. We'll get to some of that here in a sec. Jango Fett, written by Ethan Sachs, who did Bounty Hunter series. It's just a really cool series starring Jango Fett, and like Aura sings around, and it's just getting into Bounty Hunter fun in the prequels. Really cool series. We'll bounce through these pretty quick. Star Wars High Republic Adventures, Dark Horse, looks like issue 6, I think, of about 8 or so is planned. It's kind of like, I don't want to say the kid version of the High Republic, but kind of. The art is usually really solid. Daniel Jose Older is the writer. He's written some of the High Republic books. I like his writing style. The characters here, I think we got Zine and Lula are kind of like the two characters. Lula is a now former Jedi who kind of lost her memory. There's a whole thing there. It's it's coming together. It's, again, not exactly my favorite of the High Republic comics, but it's got some good moments, and there's certainly a lot of heart in the series. I will give it that. Lots of heart.
I think I read through the first 2 or 3 phases of adventure.
Yeah.
It's not in my pull anymore. I just haven't been getting it. But
the last one had Maz Kanata in it.
That's right.
Back.
Yep.
So, and Jexter from the Diner of Attack of Clones. He was another main character in the crew. So just to tie that in. This one here, Ty Yorick, Star Wars High Republic Adventures, Saber for Hire. Ty Yorick had her own series called, I think it was The Monsters of Temple Peak was the very first one. She's an ex-Jedi turned monster hunter, now a reluctant pseudo master to her pseudo Padawan. It's just cool, man. She's a really cool character. She's got a purple lightsaber. What else can you say? She's an ex-Jedi now out hunting monsters and getting into all kinds of trouble. It's actually pretty cool. I really like Ty Yorick. I really like the Monster of Temple Peak. All her series have been great. Speaking of purple lightsabers, Mace Windu. Yeah. We've got issue 4, which was the final of his little mini series. Yep. Did you get a chance to read this one yet?
Not yet. It's actually at the top of my list right now. Okay. I worked out of Charleston today and had planned on spending my lunch break catching up on my one-offs. Like, I've got Mace Windu 4. I've got Jango Fett to finish. We haven't gotten to it yet, but Maul, Black, White, and Red. I cannot wait to read that one. So yeah, I'm a little bit behind, but I'm catching up.
We'll keep it light, on those since you haven't read them yet. Long story short, I basically read a review that was like, Mace Windu ends on a lame note. Personally, it was my favorite issue of the whole run.
Oh, nice.
I'm not saying it's been a great, crazy run, but I actually enjoyed his duel with this character. This guy just had a lot of really cool stuff to say about the Force. Like he definitely leaned more into the dark side, but he had an interesting point of view that while I maybe don't agree with it 100%, I was like, nah, he's saying some really cool,
kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah, he's saying some really compelling stuff. So that was good. Star Wars 47, Charles Soule again.
Yep.
This is the finale of the Lando Calrissian trial, or the trial of Lando Calrissian arc.
Yep.
And man, I want to say Charles Soule used to be a lawyer. I'm 95% sure on that. And you can tell. It was really cool, the whole the trial thing. Of course, Lando got himself into some trouble because, I mean, it is Lando after all. But I got to say, it ended in a really satisfying way on that arc. So, jump right in if you are looking to pick up, I think, the last 4 issues, so roughly 44 through 47, were the trial of Lando Calrissian.
It's like Suits meets Star Wars.
Yes, it's very much like Suits meets Star Wars. And then lastly, like Cameron was saying, Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red. It's like an anthology series. Every issue is sort of a different mission that he is going on for Darth Sidious. The first issue was awesome. Cameron's like, dude, you got to read the first issue. And I was like, all right. I read it. I was like, he's right. It's pretty solid. The second issue, same.
Nice.
Super, super awesome.
I hope they continue this whole Black, White, and Red series because it paints these like Sith characters in such a like cool, ruthless, like bloodthirsty light that we don't get to see necessarily in the movies. And it's just like, I'm not really a horror buff or anything, but to get to see these Sith Lords that are allegedly so ruthless, actually get to see them in print, like being ruthless is cool.
Yeah, so we'll pivot now into this question. I'm trapping you. All right, so I want to talk Ahsoka. Quick recap for people. We won't take more than a few minutes. We're going to talk about this thing that, again, we missed in the first episode of the Acolyte. We didn't discuss it, and honestly, I'm not saying no one has. I've listened to about 4 or 5 different podcasts. That's kind of the thing that I like to do in Star Wars fandom, and I haven't seen anybody talk about it. And it'll make sense as to why. So we'll get into that in just a sec. But Ahsoka, Sabine Force Watch. So I am of the mindset, people, that Sabine used the Force, albeit not very well, in part 4 of Ahsoka. There's a scene where she's fighting with Shin Hati in the forest, and she kind of gives a Force push. You hear the sound effect of the Force being used. Shin Hati kind of like goes like this, like you could see that it looked as though that her hair was moving before she moved, like a gust of wind came past. She then tells her, you have no power, and everyone's like, Sabine can't use the Force. And for weeks, I had to say, yes, she can, yes, she can, yes, she can. And then, of course, in the final episode, she does. But again, she did in part 4. Cameron, I gotta ask you a question. Now that we're bringing this back up and relitigating, because I'm still the only person apparently dying on this hill.
Okay.
How does a Jedi deflect blaster bolts with a lightsaber? How does a Jedi deflect blaster bolts with a lightsaber?
You hit them.
Yes.
With your lightsaber.
Yeah, that's great. How are they able to do that?
Speed or just like intuition?
Intuition. Just intuition. They're not using the Force. Really? Are we going to say that they're not using the Force? We're going to say that anybody can do it?
I would say
anybody can pick up a lightsaber and deflect blaster bolts?
I would say the reflexes needed.
Yeah.
They're like force inspired reflexes.
Yeah, sure.
Probably.
Because Sabine, she deflects blaster bolts in the early episodes of Ahsoka. So just throwing that out there. So that means that...
Wait.
Yeah.
Doing what? How so? With her little the shield thing?
No, with a lightsaber.
Oh, yeah.
So what was that? What was that, everybody?
Okay. That's a good point.
All right. Listen, it's not Ahsoka. We're talking about the Acolyte. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to gloat. I mean, I'm here to gloat a little.
A little bit.
No. I don't want to lean too far into the dark side. You know, it's hubris. I don't want to get too far there. You know, I'm just having some fun, okay? Obviously, everyone in the world thinks I'm wrong about her using the Force in part 4. I'm trying to remember what episode it was. It may have been part 4. It may have been earlier on. But she's definitely doing it. She definitely does it in chapters or part 6 whenever she's on Peridia and she's fighting with the Marauder people.
Yeah.
But she's doing it all throughout the series. Just throwing that out there. She's using the Force. All right. So there's a clip that I want to play the audio of from the Acolyte in the first episode. This is the scene where Sol and his Padawan Jeki are leaving the meditation room, and they're going to the prisoner hold. Vanessa Rowe is there, and she's telling him that they've got all these prisoners. They're referring to Osha as the Jedi killer, because remember she was on the prison ship.
Right.
This might be the second episode. Apologies, it's one of those two. I think it's the first episode though.
I think it's
but she, they've got all the prisoners there, and they're referring to Osha as the Jedi killer. Mm-hmm. He goes and he, does the mind wipe or the mind whatever. I don't know what it is. It wasn't a wipe on the prisoner who was hallucinating with the weird starfish drug thing. Right? Okay. Right before that, there's some really interesting stuff that is said.
Okay.
And I don't think any of us picked it up because everyone was talking about, including us, how awesome Sol was, that he came in there, he helped this guy out, he cleared his mind. He said, all right, with that in mind, listen to what the guy says. At first, you're going to hear the other group yelling about the Jedi killer. When it switches, you'll be able to tell that it's our starfish guy.
Okay.
You're listening to Star Wars.
That's not the right thing. This is.
wasn't our idea.
It was the Jedi killer! She orchestrated the whole thing!
Prisoner mutiny. Transport went down over Karlak.
Adosha?
Not among the survivors.
The Jedi killer is evil. I sensed her darkness. Beware.
Quiet your mind and tell me what happened to the young woman.
She helped me, and I betrayed her and took the last escape pod.
He sensed that
He
she was evil.
sensed that she was evil and that there was a darkness. And right before he told Soul to beware,
The sound.
Soul stopped him.
Yeah. Huh.
Now, there's a lot to that.
Mm-hmm.
One, let's bring it real world. There are certain, I'm certainly not trying to base anything quote unquote in science, but there are certain kinds of people that do certain kinds of drugs and that find themselves in certain mind states where they're picking up on, we'll call it the darker side of our reality.
Sure.
They're not quote unquote wrong. They're just tuned into something that's maybe the rest of us aren't. Again, I'm not going to get too far into that, but you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. That kind of feels like what was happening is that he was tuned into this dark side. Here comes Soul, and he seems to do an act of kindness by removing that darkness.
Yeah.
But when he does, it floods it with light. He goes, she helped me. She saved me. His whole demeanor changes. He becomes light, and I think that by doing that, it's another version of the Jedi sort of
Controlling.
This is one read. Controlling, sure, but more like taking the dark and saying we're not going to look at that.
Suppressing it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Controlling the narrative a little bit more.
Now, let's talk about a couple more implications before we jump into the third episode. Could Osha be this dark side person that's been I don't know. I mean, there's the idea of we don't know where she was the night that Indara was killed. Not saying that she killed Indara, but was she in some way involved, or was I don't know. That's the cool thing about this show is it's so intriguing. You have no idea what's going on. But at the very least, just like if we put up a Star Wars after party short today, and we were discussing some of the symbolism in the show, the rings, and the Acolyte logo, the way it sort of represents unity and infinity, and one of the other rings common in sort of philosophical circles is of course yin and yang. And the thing about yin and yang is if you look at them, it's the white and the black, but they each have a piece of the other inside of them. So it could just be that he was sensing that there is some darkness in there,
Connection.
which there is, because Osha wants vengeance. Like there is some evil there.
Yeah.
Could be that. It could be more sinister than that. Could be, I almost hate to say it, could be that Soul stopped him right before he said something that Soul didn't want everybody else to know.
That's more so what I was thinking along the lines of the control and the narrative thing.
Yeah, let's just listen to that just one more time with these kinds of ideas in mind. Again, when you're just listening to the audio, it's like, yo.
Yeah.
It really sticks out.
It wasn't our idea.
It was the Jedi killer! She orchestrated the whole thing!
Prisoner mutiny. Transport went down over Karlak.
Adosha?
Not among the survivors.
The Jedi killer is evil. I sensed her darkness. Beware.
Quiet your mind and tell me.
Just saying, man.
Yeah, he breathed out like a sigh,
before he could say what was maybe really going on.
Yeah.
That said, we're going to transition into the Acolyte episode 3 part of Star Wars After Party episode.
You're listening to Star Wars After Party. We're honored that you would join us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube for video and wherever you get your podcasts for audio. If you would like to help the pod grow, consider sharing with the Star Wars fans in your life. In addition, leaving 5 stars on Apple or Spotify, giving the video a like, or leaving a comment on YouTube are extremely helpful. Written reviews are the best way to help the podcast reach new listeners. We appreciate your support. Lastly, we want to hear from you. Record a voice memo on your phone and send it over to starwarsafterparty@gmail.com. Written email works too. Now, back to the after party.
All right, so episode 3, titled Destiny, written by Jasmine Flournoy, Eileen Shim, directed by Kogonada. I hope I'm getting those names right. Man, not what I was expecting this week.
A weird one.
It was a weird one. I wasn't thinking we were going flashback. I didn't think we were going to get an entire flashback episode whenever we did finally see the flashbacks. So that was a bit wild. Cameron, what's your overall impressions of what we just saw?
There's definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a full flashback episode, but it lines up with like Star Wars storytelling. I feel like, though we got a lot of flashback episodes in like Obi-Wan, flashback episode, or
did we in Obi-Wan? Thinking about Boba Fett, maybe.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking about.
Got
Boba
a lot
Fett.
of them in Boba Fett.
Yeah, just I'm perplexed.
You're perplexed.
I've got a lot of questions that I'm hoping get fleshed out.
Get fleshed out in this podcast or in this season.
Here's what I'll say. Here's the deal. If some things like my brain is going in different directions right now.
Talk it out.
If some things go in certain directions, I'll be very disappointed. But I'm hoping that we're going to get deeper explanations. Like, well, we can get into it later because it's more so along the lines of the
We'll do a little speculation here a little bit, and we'll kind of see where you're at.
What about you?
I mean, overall, it was really interesting. I don't feel like I have any more answers than I had before.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like, you know, I don't want to jump straight to the end, but I'm still not quite sure what happened, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I don't think the narrative that we were just told is the narrative. I really don't buy it. I'll start off with that.
Yeah, maybe they did that intentionally. Maybe it was intended on the episode to leave you like,
what?
That can't be it, because it plays out very straightforward if you look at it on a surface level.
Yeah,
but you keep your third eye open. So.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things that stuck out. I definitely need one or two more watch through, so I'll probably have more to say. 'Cause usually before we do these pods, I get at least 2, but you know, due to scheduling, we're recording the night of.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure there's a lot more to pick out, but I'm ready to jump in, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, 16 years earlier, we're on Bryndock. I was like, wow, what a beautiful opening. Look at that tree.
Yeah.
That tree is beautiful. The birds. And then come to find out it's a bunta tree. And it is beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
Osha likes to sit beside May's like, yo, you can't be around yourself. It's going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's going to kill Torben is what's going to happen. So I like the setting there. It really seemed quite idyllic. I mean, it really was a beautiful place. I can see why, you know, Mother Anacia and the rest of the clan was really intent on keeping it there, keeping it safe. The Witch Coven. I also understand Osha's point of view, though.
Yeah,
very Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to get away from here. Hey,
yeah.
I can relate. I moved away from my hometown too. I mean, I didn't leave the planet, but
yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I wouldn't if the option wasn't there.
Sure.
But this opening scene, we kind of see them begin to interact together, and it's not exactly all, you know, trees and birds. There's a little bit more going on.
Yeah, they like started this out, and the whole theme throughout this coven that they're a part of is very much like, it's very much about harmony and like unity between everybody in it. So it's very interesting that they played it from this angle where you have these twins that are supposed to be some symbol of like, it's almost like the full manifestation of what they sought out to do as a coven and like use, or we can get into that about what they're doing with the Force, but like the fact that they were able to have these two twins, it's funny. It's very interesting. It brings in a different dynamic to watch the two of them like bicker between themselves.
Interesting.
It's like the intent was for these two things to live in perfect harmony,
right?
Both the same, but and everybody else is all hyping it up and like trying to spin it in that direction, but you can't control how people develop, I guess, as humans or whatever. So it is definitely an interesting angle because you have these two things that are supposed to be one and supposed to be in harmony that are just like one is pulling really hard against the other one, and it's causing a lot of anxiety for the one that doesn't.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we talked a little bit about this idea of yin and yang earlier.
Yeah.
And that pull just seems very natural. And, it's funny in that same, I'm going to grab it. It's right here. There was this interesting passage in the Tao Te Ching, and it actually talks about harmony in that same passage. So I wonder if this is what they're picking stuff up in. In this world, beauty is called beauty because there's ugliness. Good is called good because there is evil. Thus, emptiness and existence transform into each other. Difficult and easy come from each other. Long and short compare to each other. High and low flow from each other. Sounds and voices blend together in harmony. Before and after follow each other.
Yeah.
So this idea of these things being in harmony, I mean, they can be and they are. It's just, it's very interesting the way that, it's almost like we expect things that are in harmony to be, I guess, like stable or whatever, but it's just not the way of
it's
things.
Like this is what everybody strives for.
Right.
So this should be perfect utopia.
But
it's actually not.
But for, to quote some scientists who, I don't know, every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
So it's only natural that while one pushes one way, the other would pull the other. I don't know. To me, it makes sense. There was this, we see it play out later, but I noticed, by the way, shout out to Mother Coral. The Zabrak female, she looked great. Like when she first popped on the screen, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like she's really cool. There was like the red and blue beyond the mountain at the beginning. We see it later. I don't know if it was like two suns or like a sun and a moon or what.
It almost gave me like a Northern Lights kind of
could have been. Yeah, I'm not really sure what it was, but then there was an eclipse of some kind.
Sure, yeah.
So
something had to be moving.
Yeah, something was moving, but it had the red and the blue from, the logo of the series. I thought that all that was really interesting. I don't want to assign too much blame, but it kind of feels like this is all OSHA's fault. Cameron, talk me out of it.
Well,
I mean, it's not, of course. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, that's like that's the dilemma of the whole thing. It's like it's is it her fault for wanting something for herself, or is it everyone else's fault for not being able to take responsibility for their own reactions and lashing out?
Yeah, it's really strange. I found myself going back and forth. Like, at one point when the episode, before we'd saw everything that came to pass, and again, I still don't think we've seen everything. But as we were watching it, I was kind of like feeling really uncomfortable. I was like, yo, the Jedi can't take this girl away. Like, she's, she's just a little kid. She's got this beautiful home, like, but that's every Jedi that's ever been taken away.
Sure.
And, I really felt pretty strongly about it. And then when she's like, I want to do this, I was like, oh man, maybe she should. But then I was like, no, wait a minute. No, she's a child. She doesn't know. Like, she doesn't know what's best for her. She's 9 years old or 8 years old or whatever. And I think I flip-flopped a few more times after that. Like, it's just wild. I like that about the show, I guess, is it does have me sort of all over the place in terms of what I think
you're running it through your own like perspective and running your own life through this like dilemma, or trying to look for like parallels, because it's on one hand, and we were talking about this a little bit while we were watching it, like there's one line where Mother
Anasia
Mother Anasia says she has to decide for herself what she wants, or she knows what she wants. And then
very Shmi, she said that line. It was actually a really great one. I think I wrote it down. She said, "Yeah, fear should not make this decision."
Yeah, fear should not. Yeah, God, that's such a good line.
What a great line.
Yeah.
Fear should not make this decision. You should.
But she's trying to defend her to the other mother, and she says something like, she knows what she wants. She has to decide for herself. And then the next scene is her also talking to Osha, saying, "You don't know what you want." So it kind of you're at this. My initial reaction was, okay, you just said two very contrasting things, but also like it. They are different concepts. Like you can know what you want, but it's almost like you have to have the space to be trusted to know what you want, but also have the perspective to know that what you want can and will change.
That's what I thought that she said was, you know what you want, but what you want will change.
Yeah.
I feel like, those things feel very true. I mean, you can want something in a moment, and the very next moment be like, not the best idea. I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I get it. But it is seemingly conflicting. It's definitely a challenging concept to wrap your head around. Let's talk about May for a sec. She seemed like she was just loving life, man. She had this line that, and the way she delivered it was really nice. She said, "Everything I need is here."
It's here, yeah.
It's such a wild thing to think that like this is the little girl that's gonna fall to the dark side. And I mean, in the very episode, I mean, regardless of what happened, and we'll get to it, but she was gonna set her sister on fire at the very least. I mean, kind of a messed up thing. What are your thoughts about May this episode? Anything else kind of sticking out to you?
It really just like drives home the point of like the tragedy of it all, and like how, because it's a relatable struggle to be so content and want to hold everything as close as you can and feel like afraid of losing it when you have variables that are like actively pulling away or need more. Like I'm content right here, but I'm with someone, or I have this other person in my life that is saying I need more or I want more. And the fear and anxiety that brings in you, because you're like, I don't understand how you could want more, because like this is great. This is all we need right here. Yeah. So it adds more depth to like why she turned out the way that she did. Not only, I mean, there's like a couple of things about it. It's like, one, she was angry and fearful that she was going to lose her sister.
Right.
Two, she lashed out and did something about that. And we'll speculate as to what actually happened with all that. But three, now she's on this, like, she's got this vendetta that, again, we don't know exactly what happened, but she's definitely justifying it in her mind as, you did this to me. Right. You, Jedi, took my sister away from me. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out as far as like what the actual reality is of what happened.
Yeah, I think we've got some breadcrumbs that were dropped in the first episode that shows that it wasn't just,
because like
within Dara and what she said in that first episode, she's like, you do attack people who don't have weapons. Like,
right.
We'll wait. It's weird because we're speculating on past events, and we just kind of flashback. It doesn't feel like speculation, but it kind of is. So we'll save. I'll save it.
This episode. I mean, this episode feels a lot like we're kind of. It's just a lot of spitballing in all directions, because we've kind of been left like kind of scratching our heads a lot. But I mean, it's very similar to Anakin. Anakin, because of his fear and because of his hatred, killed Padme. Essentially,
allegedly. I don't buy that.
But his immediate reaction was, "You did this to her." He looked at Obi-Wan. He immediately found some other blame other than himself.
Now that is something that happens a lot.
So that's what's playing out with May. It's like she may be at a point where she's like, "Wow, I ran my sister off. I burnt down my world and killed everybody I've ever known in the making." Rather than take responsibility for how she reacted and how she might have overreacted,
right,
and the consequences of that, it's much easier to point in the direction of the Jedi and say, "You did this to us." Again, big giant disclaimer:
we don't know what happened.
We talked about this last week. I believe there was foul play involved with the Jedi. I think they are to blame for at least some part of this. But I'm trying to empathize with where we are and what we're seeing on the screen and how we can respond to it. And I think May is trying to justify some of her actions by saying the Jedi are actually who are to blame for this.
Yeah, so we'll get into Jedi. Let's catch a couple points. We're going to get up to that ritual, because when the ritual happens, there's a lot of things that pop off that are important. So leading up to the ritual, Mother Anastasia is instructing May and Osha on the Force, which I'm putting in air quotes because she doesn't want to call it the Force, and getting them, prepared for the ceremony. She had this very interesting line here. Some call it a force and claim to use it, but we know the thread is not a power you wield. Very interesting. Let me explain with this, because Cameron, you were telling me that I guess this episode had leaked. Okay. The episode went out to some folks, I guess, be it podcasters or other media members. I think up to 4 episodes, I think is what I heard. And seems like this one had gotten passed around a little bit, and somebody's gone around talking their mouth about it prior to it airing tonight. I would say all that to say, I hope that teaches Lucasfilm to stop doing that. Stop showing people the stuff before everybody gets a chance to see it. I don't care about what some random I know this is the epitome of hypocrisy. I'm a random person on the internet talking about. I'm saying, like, I don't need to know what they think before the thing is out. Can we all talk about it together?
Before everybody gets the opportunity to like process it on their own.
Yeah, I really don't need. Oh guys, oh man, it's going to be so great. Like, I don't need that. We're watching it. Stop doing that. It's annoying. Anyways, that said, Lucasfilm, let us know for the next premiere. I'm just kidding. I don't like it. Yeah. It's so much more fun. I remember, quick sidebar, when Obi-Wan was coming out, I remember sitting there watching Celebration, because it was during Celebration that year, and I remember being like, man, it's 20 years of Attack of the Clones. Like, man, it was so fun. I can't believe, I was like 12, 13 years old. I went to this midnight premiere, and there was something about sitting down with a bunch of people who are watching this stuff at the same exact time. There's just something in the air. It feels great. And I missed that. And then Obi-Wan, I was like, man, it sucks. It's like 3 a.m. here on the East Coast. I can't stay up till 3 a.m. And they're like, guess what? We're putting Obi-Wan out early. Yeah. And I read that tweet as I was going to sleep, and it was like 11:50, and they're like, we're putting it out at midnight. And I was like,
I can wait.
I guess your boy's staying up until 1:30 to watch these 2 episodes. And I remember how much fun it was. It's just so much more fun when we all watch it together. Why do we got to mess with that?
Yeah.
Cameron, why? Sorry. It's quite a tangent. So, all right, let me go back to this quote. Some call it a force and claim to use it, but we know the thread is not a power you wield. Now, you were telling me that people were having a problem with this, that it was redefining what the force is. Here's what I would say. No, it's not. If you want to think of the force the way that Yoda spoke of it, the way that Obi-Wan spoke of it, the way that Qui-Gon, anyone else spoke of it, the way that George Lucas wrote it, you can. Here's what's happening. It's just like God. It's just like God in the real world.
Yeah.
10 people could say God. None of them might mean the same thing. Or they have different names for the same thing. One might call it the Tao. One might call it God. One might call it collective consciousness. One might call it whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what I really think this is. It's the problem with language when dealing with things that are of such a, substantial nature that's beyond our comprehension. Nobody truly understands the Force any more than anyone truly understands God. We have ideas, and we can talk about those ideas. I think that's what's happening here, but I don't think that in my opinion, there's no reason to get super upset about this show redefining what the Force is. It's just another interpretation of what's happening. Cameron, am I off base with that? Like, have I missed something?
No, I think that's a much more nice way to frame it, rather than like we're talking about people getting up in arms immediately about, something. And people walk on eggshells a lot, and they get real antsy about Star Wars nowadays because things are just done differently. But I mean, what we're referring to is like, so the use of the Force to create life.
Well, that's coming up.
I mean, we haven't gotten there yet, but I'm trying to, like, what we're talking about is something that is like unnatural, like a usage of the Force that is not
some would
accepted by the
unnatural,
Jedi. Yeah. So it's the same thing that the Sith has done in the past.
Or in the future.
In the future. So it's like, it's a new concept right now, and this is just how the Jedi are like reacting to it. But I do like this idea that it's just a different perspective of the Force, which can be manipulated. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil, you can use it for natural things and unnatural things. So I think a lot of folks were upset because they were saying, this whole thread idea of the Force versus the like Force is in every living being or whatever. The people were using it as contrasting, saying they're rewriting what the Force is. But I think a more rational explanation of it, or a more rational perspective, would be that there are people all throughout the galaxy, if we do believe that the Force is accessible by anyone, that with enough training can learn to use it in all kinds of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all kinds of different ways. And even when she talked about it being more like a thread, she was saying a thread that connects us all. So it's not that difference between like that and like it penetrates us and binds us all together. Yeah. It's all the same. Yeah. It's just different words, man. Anyways, I thought all that was incredibly interesting. I love that. It was about this time when they're about to get ready to do the ritual performance, which was sick, by the way. They were kind of like, are the Jedi coming? And they're sort of like looking around and they hear a sound and like, what was that?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, what was that? Because there was a sound over there at that giant reactor core, and then that thing exploded and killed everybody.
Yeah. I don't know what that thing was.
Just saying, was someone in there messing with something? Maybe they wanted to get all the kids out before that happened. Yeah. Interesting. I'm getting a little fired up over here.
We're gonna harvest your kids.
I love the
and then
Jedi.
Kill all of you.
I love democracy. I love the Jedi, but like, man, this is really bumming me out.
I don't know, man. That sounds like some stuff that someone who doesn't love the Jedi or democracy might say.
All right. So, but it's such a weird thing because as that was going on, I was like, oh man, are the Jedi about to attack? And I thought for a second, I was like, wow, how strange is it? I know you haven't watched Lord of the Rings, but there's like, in the Two Towers when they're at Helm's Deep and they're just like waiting for the battle to start. There's like this eerie calmness, but it's about to go down. That's how it felt. But, I was waiting for the Jedi to attack. It was very strange in terms of the switch in perspective. So we get to that ritual performance. I also love the line of what the thread has tied together, no one can separate. Talking about the sisters, and again the thread binding to that language sounds a lot like marriage. Again the logo, the circle, unity, like it's all coming together. They're weaving this very, very nicely. And the Jedi show up, and before the Jedi show up, let's talk about their birth.
Yeah.
It seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, virgin birth, a la Anakin, Cameron.
Yep.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I definitely think that's what it is. And we never got. I'm comparing this to Anakin. We never really got an explanation as to
how it happened,
how Anakin happened.
There's a lot of conjecture that it was stoked by Palpatine or perhaps Darth Plagueis or something like that. But which, by the way, I'm listening to the audiobook of Plagueis now, and I'm down with that. Look out, Cameron! You got a cat stalking you over here. Juno, get out of here! Sorry, guys, my cat's coming in.
Yeah. So like it was obviously a manipulation of midichlorians or the Force or whatever you want to say that got Shmi pregnant with Anakin without a father. Very similar thing happening here. We're just seeing who used the Force to make it happen, and then also who would be Shmi in this situation.
Yeah, yeah. And
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it was almost word for word. Instead of he has no father, it was they have no father.
Yeah.
And right before that, I do want to point out, just because it's in my notes, I don't want to skip it. Mother Anastasia instructed everyone to put down your weapons, no violence.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so they have no father, and there was talk about them sort of like in some way. Sorry, Juno is really distracting me. He usually doesn't come in here when we're recording. That's quite strange. But yeah, it was interesting to see that they were quote unquote born of virgin birth.
Yeah.
In mythology, generally. I'll have to really brush some stuff off. I'm talking a little beyond my depth here, but generally in mythology, virgin births are more of a sign and a sign to heroes who have spiritually ascended to a higher level. Especially in like Greek mythology, it's generally less about physical birth and more representative of a second, almost like spiritual birth, which is interesting because it's very prevalent in Greek mythology. In the New Testament, a writer who was Greek was Luke, and Luke is the only one who in the Gospels that talks about Christ being born of a virgin birth.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, anyways, I was thinking about that. Like, are we going to see some kind of spiritual rebirth or awakening in our two characters, Osha and May here? I don't know. But I don't know if they're tying in a lot of symbolism from a lot of different philosophy and mythology. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, how do you feel about now? This is where I could see people maybe getting a little upset. It doesn't bother me too much, I don't think, but I haven't thought about it much. So I'll pitch it to you, Cameron. you can jump on the sword. Right. How do you feel about now there being more characters in the Star Wars universe that have been born of a virgin birth, besides the chosen one himself, Anakin Skywalker?
How do I feel about it?
Yeah, does it diminish Anakin in some way? Now
Yes.
If you tell a Christian that people besides Jesus were born of a virgin birth, they might be pretty upset. So I'm just bringing it over here.
It certainly like opens up the question of like, okay, well, why weren't there more? And maybe there were. Maybe we don't know. But I think it does diminish. I think it does diminish Anakin a little bit because it's like we know Anakin's birth to be the way that it was because you're like, yeah, he's the chosen one. Something was at play here. Palpatine was doing something, maybe, or someone like it was a one-off where someone highly, highly trained. And, again, we're like way far in the future with this.
Bro, I got to share. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. What you got?
When they were doing the ceremony, Mother Anastasia tells May, will you remember and keep all the secrets of the Coven?
Yeah.
She
the
said
secrets.
Yes.
And she did.
One of the secrets is how to
create life.
Yeah. And so May, being the Acolyte, would ascend to the Sith.
Yeah.
And would teach it to whoever.
Yeah.
And it goes down the line and down the line and down the line to a young Palpatine.
Or it gets lost for basically
it's
ever.
Bro, it's not that far away. What do you mean? It's only like 87 years.
Yeah, that's true.
So like in the book, what is it? Darth Canibus, I think. So it's like it could be like and that's not canon. Neither is Darth Plagueis for what it's worth. I'm just, but in the book he's immune, and they say that he, when he died, it kind of like starts with him dying and then it goes back from there, but that he could have lived for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And so, like, could it be that May, maybe both, but I'm thinking May because she's the one with the knowledge, although Osha probably knows too, but could they end up being trained by or training Darth Plagueis, and Darth Plagueis gets the secret of how to create life from them?
Yeah.
Could we see the Sith stealing it from this Coven?
Yeah. I mean, because apparently, based off of how the episode ended, ain't nobody else going to give it to him. It's going to have to come from Osha or May.
Dang. Something you said lit that up in me. I'm going to have to rewatch this.
Hey, you're welcome.
Man.
That's what I'm here for.
Man, all right. So, this was the line too that sort of tied into this. Coral said to Anasia, "What happens if the Jedi discovered how you created them?"
Yeah,
That's what it was. So, obviously, Anasia knows how to create life. She's done it once at least, and presumably, they've passed those secrets on to Osha and May. I don't know, man. When they went to go do the test, the training, they were sitting at this like outpost little camp thing. It felt very KOTOR to me, especially when they went up to Kelnaka and he's doing all the sound effects of
he's like working on the speeder bike.
Yeah, it felt very video gamey. You walk by and someone's like working on a bike or something, and you just
like NPCs, just like kind of in the background, just like
that's exactly what it felt like. So they do Osha's test, and Soul kind of manipulates. I feel like
I would
Osha.
say definitely does. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't know that it was quote unquote right or wrong. He was just trying to get her to tell the truth, but it also was like, bro, like the way that he was kind of doing the like, that is correct. He was lying. That's interesting. He was using a lie in order to get the truth.
Because the truth.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It's always going to come back around.
And we also see the other side of this. The mother's telling them like right after this scene, like Osha was sitting here saying, I couldn't lie. Like I didn't want to. And they were like, yes, sometimes like you have to lie sometimes. So you're kind of all over the place morally. Cause you're like, here we have a parent figure telling their child to lie,
and here you have the Jedi who were lying to get the truth.
Yeah, that scene upset me.
Wild.
It didn't upset me the way that he was going about, like getting her to kind of fold on herself,
right?
To show that she was, and he could have been bluffing. I don't think so. I think he was probably like, I think he could sense that she was stronger than she was leading on, but.
Yeah.
Where I got angry is when they started to manipulate her after that. It wasn't when they were trying to get her to tell the truth. It was
talking about how strong and powerful she was.
Yeah.
It wasn't
playing
good.
into that. I mean, I am not in support of how the mothers were manipulating her or how the Jedi were.
Yeah.
It was all just like, here's my agenda. You're a child. Let me twist things in a way to get you to come to my outcome, which as a general topic could go on 4 hours about. But in this context, it's like, if you're going to say, Osha knows what she wants, you can't say that to like kind of gain some brownie points and then say some like backhanded stuff to kind of like manipulate it into the direction that you want it to go in.
Right.
So,
man, some interesting stuff. So we'll pivot over to some speculation here because we're at the end of the episode, but I do want to say this to kind of tie up this little bit. The Jedi were lying. Again, Soul was lying. You got it right. She got it wrong. And he said, you were right. Lied to get the truth.
Yeah.
Did a bad thing for a good thing. And I wonder if that's what happened with the rest of this episode.
Ooh.
Difficult to see. Always emotion is the future. Meditate on this. I will.
So, Cameron, what do you think happened, man?
So, Osha is going to go become a Jedi at this point. May, obviously, very angry about it. She locks Osha in their room. May burns this book that's got Jedi information in it, as we indicate with the High Republic seal on the first page. Osha's like, Osha like walks away for a second and then turns back around, and then the whole doorway is on fire. We go from burning a little triangular book to the whole doorway, and then she climbs out an escape route, and then everything is burning to the ground. The reactor thing is exploded. All the mothers are dead. May falls into the fire, and Osha is like saved by Soul.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, this is where we are. Where we are now.
They were dead like instantly. By the way, like,
and they weren't like burned bodies.
No.
Like they looked like they had all been like slaughtered.
Yeah, Mother Anastasia was in a totally different room.
So here are my thoughts.
Okay.
They want what we're talking about at the very beginning about it like playing out one way very simply is that May lit this book on fire, accidentally caught everything on fire, and then so that's the thing that was frustrating me. It's like, okay, what you're putting in front of my eyes right now is that the only thing that I'm seeing getting caught on fire is this little book, and then the next thing I see, the whole temple is burning to the ground.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to make the connection there that like this one little fire,
no.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's what happened.
No.
My thought is this: May lights the book on fire as just a start. Maybe it gets a little bit out of hand. She runs to the mothers, to the coven, to tell them what happened. Hey, something got out of hand. She's angry. She's frustrated. Something goes south, and the Jedi are there, and everything escalates. I don't know if it was May out of anger that did something that killed all the coven. Like a very similar to like Anakin rage with Tusken Raider type thing where like...
Well, that's what they were told. I mean, that's kind of the official story. That's how it
right.
happened.
Or if something escalated between May and the Coven, it heightened the Jedi, then the Coven's angry at the Coven again, or the Coven's angry at the Jedi again, so everybody's just bickering, and then one thing leads to another, and there's an all-out battle. All of the mothers are killed, and either one... fire somehow grows because it hasn't been attended to, or two, Jedi do all of this, figure out, oh no, we messed up. Now we've got to like resort to plan Z, burn everything to the ground and cover our tracks, which that's where I was leaning really heavily at first. The more that I think about how this scene played out, there would have to be a lot of decision making and a lot of violence in a very short amount of time. Like in the amount of time that May lights the book on fire and Osha comes out of the tunnel that she climbs through.
Yeah, but some of that mayhem could have happened before.
It could, yeah.
You know, and
while she was packing her stuff up.
Yeah, and that reactor core thing exploding is really something because, again, there was like a noise earlier in the episode before the Jedi showed up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean Soul was already looking around following them. They already knew where the Coven was.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe if what you're saying is true, somebody was like kind of sneaking around this reactor. It's almost like maybe they were already like putting into play their backup plan.
I think that they were because like you had, you think about like Chewbacca, Starkiller Base running around, throwing stuff around.
Yeah.
I think that was Kel Naka here.
Because they came out the gate when they first met the Coven, they said... training children in the ways of the, or I don't know, whatever they said.
No, well,
it's against Republic law,
which they were not even in the Republic. Right. So it's like, bro.
Yeah, it's that overstepping. So they went into it knowing we got to get these kids out of here. To them, this was a rescue mission. These kids are being abused and being led into this cult.
No.
Yeah.
That's what they said. But no, what it was is it's what Mother Anastasia said. This is about power and who's allowed to use it.
Yeah.
And so they went in to get these kids, to take them out, to wreck these people.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like they came in saying, we've got to get these kids out of here because what's happening is wrong. To them, this is a difference in perspective about things.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I just want to make the clarification of... they're not removing the kids because it's a bad situation. They're like, we're going to murder all of these people. Just call it what it is. We're going to murder all these people, but we can't murder these kids. So let's take the kids.
Interesting.
We're almost saying the exact same thing, but I do feel like it's a difference in perspective. They're not saving the kids because it's right to save the kids. They're just not going to murder kids. There's just a difference in that. I know it's a hard thing to parse out.
Like they're going to reluctantly take them with them because of the immoral like objection of killing. See, because I was more so thinking about it like because they know children are being taught how to use the Force, and if anybody's getting taught about the Force, it's got to come from the Jedi.
Well, yeah,
so these are dark arts that are happening. That's going to lead them down a dark path or whatever.
I don't think they knew that there were kids there. the only reason they found out was because Soul saw Osha playing. And so I think they came, they had their directive, take them out.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey guys, hold up. I just saw some kids. Okay, now let's say that we're here. We're going to say that we're here because we're supposed to rescue these kids because it's against Republic law. It was all flimsy because it's all BS.
Yeah.
You know, it's all BS.
Yeah.
They're here to take out this Coven. They find out there's kids. They're not saving the kids because they're on this great mandate to go save children. No, they went, well, if we're going to go through with this, we can't kill these kids. So we got to take these kids back with us, I guess. I mean, you know, we can do that because we can just train them to be like us. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Dude, that's what's going on. Man.
Some shade. I mean, they really like...
It hurts me that that's exactly what's happening. Like, this is not a speculation where I'm like, we got it. It's like, man, that's
I will
rough,
say,
bro.
if we like bring this all into perspective of like the first two episodes as well.
Yeah.
They're doing a really great job setting up enough, like, your senses are heightened. We see, like, we've got May and Osha and the dilemma that they're in the current. We got this great flashback episode where we see where, like, the flame was lit, literally, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they've done really well the way that they positioned the first 3 episodes to kind of build the speculation. And now, you know, sometimes when a show follows a linear path, we can speculate all we want to.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we're just kind of like blowing smoke as far as like what we think may or may not happen. But the way that this has all been kind of set up is like very, very engaging and very much like, well, I mean, it plays into the mystery aspect of it so much. It's like, whoa, here's all these things that are going on. I can't make sense of any of it, but I know it's going somewhere crazy. So it's like, it almost like electrifies you or like energizes you a little bit.
It's the best show for speculating because there's so much mystery and intrigue. We're meant to be doing this. Whereas a lot of times it's like, just watch story. This is like, no, we're messing with you. Like, it's this way, it's that way. Like, I still don't, you know, all last week I was, you know, on this train of like, you know, it's Chimere is, you know, the Sith that we've seen, the one with the weird mask.
Yeah.
Which I still believe that. I don't think he's the master, quote unquote. I think he's Osha's master. But it, you know, I listen to a lot of other people like, yeah, he's just another acolyte. But I don't get that sense. I think he's playing the fool. I think that he's tricking even May. But that said, like, that's just it. And like every podcast I would listen to would have a different person that they were speculating was the Sith, and all valid.
Oh yeah.
Like from it's May, or sorry, it's Osha, to it's Indara, she's still alive, to it's Soul. I mean, everybody was, you know, super speculative about who it could possibly be. And, you know, on one hand, I'm over here saying, yeah, it's definitely, you know, Chimere, but maybe not. Like, I really don't know. One person that I heard someone say that it was Yord, which
Yord?
Apparently there are people out there, Cameron, that like Yord.
What?
I don't know, man. It makes me wonder, like, am I just getting old and jaded? Like, if I was a kid, I'd be like, look at Yord, he's a Jedi, he's so cool. I don't know. Maybe I'm becoming the very thing that I swore to destroy. Oh, I don't know. Cameron, it's getting late, man. How much you got left there? Are we getting to the end of this?
The only other thing that I was going to mention is that I did see, and we don't have to go into this. I'll just leave you and the listeners / watchers with this. But I did see a comment somewhere that someone was speculating whether or not maybe one of the mothers could be the Sith.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Enacting their own revenge via May. Also, still having a hand in the development and growth of May. But I don't know. I don't have any no further thoughts. It was just a little blip I saw, and I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, could be. We'll see. You good?
Yeah, man. Let's shut her down.
Land this ship. We'll be back next week. I mean, I'm hoping that the next episode we're going to get some stuff with Kelnaka and, you know, the present day, but Might we get another flashback? Like a flashback from inside the flashback? Like, when are we going to get this information?
I think we're going to flash back to present time. I think we're going to go back to present time.
Okay.
And then maybe get like a really, really crazy flashback at the very end of the episode.
All right. I can barely keep up, but, I'm going to be here. We want you to be here, so make sure you're following, subscribing along, all that stuff. I'm going to do some shorts this week on YouTube and Instagram.
Do it, man.
If I can get the password info from you for the Instagram, because I've lost it, but it's whatever. We'll figure it out. Until then, check us out there. Tyler out.
Cameron out.